So that was the startup to scale up, unlocking the growth. I am sure you would have a lot of learning from this session, how to scale up. From the last, yesterday, I am looking at a lot of people from Jammu to, Trivandrum, from Surat to Shillong. I've been meeting across. I'm sure all of you would have a lot of learning from the session. Moving on, this particular session was powered by SAP and NetApp Accelerator. Moving on, we will now have the most interesting session. This is the share the stage. At this point in time, I would also like to share with you that TiEcon is one of the flagship event of TI. However, there are lots of events that continues in the part of, as a part of TI events. Every month we have sessions, mentoring session, pitching sessions, and my story session where a lot of legendary entrepreneurs come and inspire you. Don't hesitate to become this member of TI, and if you have any idea or any budding spirit of becoming an entrepreneur, then TI is the place. Moving on again, this session is powered by Microsoft, and we thank for their support. I would like to invite on stage the legendary entrepreneur, one of my mentor and advisor, Mr. Deep Kalra. Put our hands together. Let's big round of applause for Mr. Deep. Welcome, sir. I would like to invite Lathika Pai, Country Head Vice President, PE Partners. Lathika, please. Over to you, Lathika.
So for all of you who would like to join the session, please come in. And this format is an unplugged format that we're doing for the first time at TI, which is I will ask Deep a few questions, and then one member or two members from the audience, as time permits, can come on stage and ask Deep whatever questions you may have for him. So for those of you who are joining the session, grab a chair. Thank you. And we're ready to go. So Deep, welcome. And as always, it's wonderful to have you here. And, when I think of Deep, it's the first word that comes to my mind is not startup, billionaire, NASDAQ, etc. The first word that comes to my mind is Deep is just the most wonderful gentleman.
Thank you.
I have interacted with Deep over 10 years, and from my very first conversation with Deep, he's always just grounded, honest, and practical, right? So Deep, today you quit your high-flying corporate job. You got your MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. What made you do that? Back in the day, we're probably the same genre in terms of what our parents expected of us and what we wanted to do. So the corporate world was where you had to be, right? So what made you take that plunge in terms of becoming an entrepreneur?
Sure, I'll answer that. But first, thank you very much, Lathika. Very warm introduction. And I tried many times to understand from Lathika, what are we going to do today? And she studiously avoided telling me anything. Even now, I said, can we meet before? Yeah, we'll meet. So this is the first time I'm getting to know about this session. It's a rare TiEcon. I've not been too involved with the format. I was a little tied up. But to answer your question, so yeah, I grew up in a upper middle class, private sector. My dad was in the private sector. My mom was a teacher. I just wanted to actually join the private sector. So even when I did my MBA after that, I had no ambitions of being an entrepreneur. There was an entrepreneurship course offered at IIM Ahmedabad. I didn't take that course just to I had no kind of inclination that side. And then I did 3 jobs. So I worked with ABN AMRO Bank straight out of my MBA in 92 to 95. I helped bring an American company to India called AMF Bowling, and we tried to set up this sport of 10-pin bowling, which I think was before its time or just too land intensive for India. But I think, learned my entrepreneurial chops there. It was a very entrepreneurial role. And again, silly me not connecting the dots and saying this is what I really like doing. I panicked and I joined G Capital because I felt I've stopped learning. So I worked with G for just about a year and a half, very closely with Pramod as well. Convinced Pramod to set up gindia.com. He gave us $1 million for that. And then I felt when the internet was happening, this is 99, 2000, that this is going to be very hard to crack for a large company. And it was about focus. At the second, at the same time, I was also feeling that the internet is going to change everything. And the only way to do this is to do it oneself and to do it 100% of what you do, not as a, something small that a large company does. And so I think it was the pull. If it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't have turned entrepreneur. And if it wasn't, maybe I think about this a lot, maybe I was in a smaller company which said, okay, we're going to get into the internet. Maybe I would have stayed happy there. So I think it's always a confluence of events. We take a lot of credit, but very often these things happen, and not even for a reason. I think you've got to seize the opportunities. The real tough part, actually, Lathika, was 1 year after starting MakeMyTrip. The first year was a honeymoon. We got early stage funding from a fund called eVentures, got $2 million, which was a lot of money then in 2000. That is probably equivalent to, I think, 40 million today. And then within a year, I think our whole world came crashing down. .com bust happened for India. Sanjeev from Naukri says we were the last or the second last company to get funded in India at that time. Travel and all our business was non-resident Indians from the US coming to India. So NRI travel, that came to a crashing halt because of 9/11. So 9/11 happened then. And then SARS, which is really the great-grandfather of COVID, also took at the same point of time. So our world came crashing down. Our VCs wanted their money back. And they said, you have two options. You can pay the money back or shut down the company. And I said, if I could pay the money back, wouldn't have taken your money in the first place. Very old traditional school. But then I understood the concept of distress valuation. We weren't taught that in IMA, but a friend of mine taught me that. And I offered them a distress valuation, which they took. So bought back the company. It was entirely management owned, and a couple of angels from eVentures who helped us. And the next 4 years, I think, were the real entrepreneurship. Back towards the wall, no salary for 2 years, not knowing beyond 2 months. 2 months is what we had always. And then that 2 months of buffer, 2 months to pay salaries, 2 months to do rent. And then it grew 3 or 4 months. So I think great sacrifices made by the team, great sense of purpose. And I think that was the whole point, what brought the team together, and that's belief. Belief in your businesses when you don't have funding and you're bootstrapped. That's belief. Belief is when you're going to shut down, could shut down in the next couple of months, but you still want to carry on. And belief is when you have high opportunity cost, to your question. You have a high opportunity cost, you have a very comfortable job which you quit, or you could go back to the corporate world, but you still want to do. That's belief. Not when you get millions and millions of dollars of funding. Yeah.
Thank you, Deep, because I was in my startup journey at the same time, and I know the funding was very, very limited in terms of what you'll end up raising, and so appreciate the journey. Now, let's fast forward to 2024. What do you believe, just like the internet was, about to explode, right? What do you believe is going to explode? If you were to, say, I want to start up again right now.
I'll give you a hint. It's a 2-letter acronym. There's nothing else, right? I mean, the impact of AI is going to be no less than, I think, the impact of the internet, the impact of mobile phone and apps. It's going to be AI and probably more. I mean, I think we've just scratched the surface. It is scary, but it's exhilarating. And I think if there's anyone out there who has an inclination to understand it, even if you're not a coder, you should go whole hog into it. I think it's the moment when companies say, and I've been urging my CEO and CTO to say, not AI first, I think AI only. So that's the way we'll have to think about this. Otherwise, we'll miss the boat. And it's going to move so rapidly. Great case in point, right? Google, probably one of the most incredible companies ever, and even today. I mean, you make a few small mistakes and you get left behind. And Microsoft, full credit to you. And look at how Microsoft has come back and they've just, seized the march. And they're doing so brilliantly because of a great decision made and a very bold decision. So I think it's going to come down to that. I do believe for the youngsters out there, next generation, or for those of you who have kids, if you don't grow up knowing how to work with AI and tackle AI, even if you're not a coder, but at the minimum I work around it, I think you'll be illiterates of tomorrow. I tell my own kids this and they're still not listening, but I think they'll be illiterates of tomorrow if they don't know how to manage AI.
For the record, Deep did mention that I dodged all his questions about this session. But, as far as Microsoft's concerned, in fact, I joke with a lot of founders, like I mentioned, Deep would take my call even before Gen AI came in. But today, people call me and say, we really want to speak to you on how to adopt and infuse Gen AI. I think you're absolutely right. I've been at Microsoft now for 5 years, and the opportunity in terms of infusing Gen AI is absolutely mind-boggling. I was talking to some investors, said, back in the day when I did this workshop, and they said, what do you mean back in the day? I said a year ago. Because a year ago to where we are today, it's extremely different. So we're at the 20-minute mark. Who would like to be the first person to come in and share the stage with Deep? Hands up. First person, the gentleman in the check shirt, please come. So the format is very simple. We have Ashish, who is with Titan Workspace. Ashish, you can ask Deep 2 questions, and then we'll have someone else join the stage.
Right, thank you, and fortunate to be here quickly.
Thank you.
So my question to you is, when you act as a leader now, and there is an AI impact for which either your employees are going to be reskilled or you will get away with them. Not you, but maybe the industry, right? So now where the AI has come in the last 6 to 7 months, it's likely to become more and more dominant. So as a MakeMyTrip founder, what is in your mind so that you protect your people first? That's my first question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Ashish, and thank you for asking that. I think it's heavy on any leader's mind, like it should be even when, times like COVID for us, for a travel business, you can imagine, we had the toughest time ever, and even if I look back on 23 years, the saddest and the lowest moment was not when we thought we could shut down. The saddest and the lowest moment was when we actually had to let go of 10% of our staff during COVID. And there was no option. We have tried after that to get people back. We had to survive, so we have to do that. I think with AI, it's a different one. It's an opportunity, but if you don't embrace it, someone else is going to. So while it sounds a little ruthless, I think we have to be the first to embrace that opportunity. I think areas that get impacted are at various levels. So at the first level, it's customer service for sure. We've been trying to do that. Pardon me, we've been trying to do that even earlier with chatbots. Happened to some effect. We do outsource most of our customer service, actually 95% of it. That doesn't mean people won't get impacted. They may not be on our roles, but indirectly they're on our roles. And that's why I'm saying we have to adapt, we have to re-skill ourselves. But if something tomorrow can be done equally well, and perhaps even better and more efficiently by a machine, it's going to happen. Whether MakeMyTrip does it or not, it's going to happen. And people who will do it that well will be the ones who will streak ahead, because people cost is a very big part of it. So those people will have to, again, reskill themselves. I'll just answer it. I'm sorry. So there are skills which will stay safe Yesterday, I met someone who's doing a master's, a young girl, friend's child. She's doing a master's in organizational behavior. And I told her it's a great line. And I asked her why she chose it, because she was doing something very different earlier. And she said, I chose it because I realized this is something which is not going to be transient, it's going to be needed. It's a very good reason. And I said, absolutely right. That will be hard. On the other hand, people say programming. I think we are already looking at a point where in the teens, that kind of percentage of our programming work is being done by the computer, by AI. And there are startups, the other day some startup was sharing that they're doing 70% of their coding is being done by AI. Startup, it's easier because old companies, you're working on old code, it's not that easy. It's going to happen all across. So you have to reskill yourself, whoever you are. It's not a question of protecting your people. It's a question of helping them reskill and to do stuff which tomorrow they can be prompters. People can do good work with AI around it. People will have to look at definitely uplifting their skills. Same impact of computers, same impact of typists. What happened to typists? So, I learned typing as a skill in school, and it helps us, but I can't make a career out of it. These kind of things are going to happen all over again.
Right, so I was expecting the same response.
Okay.
And here's my second question. So now let's talk about not from the MakeMyTrip, but from the social impact of AI. So you said that people must reskill to stay relevant, right? So assuming there is strata who's a doer strata, right? And their jobs are
Who's a doer?
doers. Their jobs are at risk because a lot of things in the last 6 months is taken over by AI, right? Now we invest in them and tell them, okay, you go to the next level, we reskill you on certain things extra, right? After a couple of months, AI is going to take care of, expand its wings, and it's going to take certain more areas, so that means we are putting an expiry on every skill in the future that might be taken over by AI faster than even expected today, right? So as a leader, from the social perspective, right, if you're asking society, 10 million people in your remote villages, go and reskill yourself, and they will not take 6 months, 1 year, and because that's a human, right? And AI then comes in the next level and says, no, this is expired. Reskill to upper. So that means, are we saying, so what are your thoughts on that? I mean, this is a big challenge in the society.
It absolutely is. And I'm one of those who believe that our demographic dividend we talk about with the youth can flip very easily if we don't create enough relevant jobs to become a demographic liability. So I think it's a huge challenge. I don't think I have all the answers, but I do know one thing for sure, that it's not just us, it's everywhere. So you cannot be an ostrich. You cannot put it and say like, listen, we're going to block AI. Now the government has said right now we're going to try to regulate it. Try to. Then they clarified the next day this they're only going to do for large tech, big companies, and for reasons that we know. Very hard to do. Technologies like water, where have we been able to stop anything? Has anything you tell us? But we all out here are looking at avenues to be, how can we make an opportunity out of it? How can we? So I think that's the, that is the nature of the beast.
Do you have some clue about that?
Clue about what?
What kind of that, I mean, where should the society invest their time now?
I said up front, the next generation has to understand this and be involved with this. They can't say, turn away and say, no, this is not going to impact me. They'll be the losers. Yeah. But very thought-provoking questions.
So I'd like to add one thing, right? Because I'm in multiple sessions talking to a lot of leaders. And I think the reality is not just the next generation, our generation, every single one of us here have to realize that I relate this to the back in the day when you had the munshis who used to keep ledgers. And we thought that, with tally, that they would lose their jobs, that accountants would lose their jobs. The fact of the matter is you still find it difficult to find a good accountant, right? We think that there are, that lawyers are going to lose their jobs because of the fact that Gen AI will come in. But if you look at the use cases, especially like in a country like ours, today, the power of Gen AI is the ability to leverage technology to take it to every person in the country. Case in point, one of the healthcare companies that I'm speaking to, The use case is that they have a doctor, a junior doctor in a tier 3 city. Say a patient walks in, 65-year-old, male, suffering from pneumonia, overweight, right? The junior doctor is not quite sure what should be the treatment plan. Using Gen AI, they can put in the symptoms and say, here, of course, with all data protection, come out and say, okay, we've had 5 cases of similar. Here is a potential treatment plan. So what they would have necessarily not have access to a senior doctor to whom they could have gone and asked the question, they now have this information in front of them that they can then get trained. They don't have the time to read research papers. So one of the things that we always demo as Microsoft is that you can take a research paper, put it in, and then say, give me what are the salient features that I need to use. So it's coming, that's why we call it the co-pilot, the productivity angle. So the most important part is for people not to be afraid, but to start. There's so much available in public domain that you should go and start using it. MakeMyTrip, for example, has a wonderful Gen AI chatbot, conversational chatbot that's been there, right? So you go in there and you have a conversation which says, "Mujhe 4 दिन के लिए बीच जाना है," right? It's multilingual. And then say, okay, it asks which month, how many days, what is your budget? It's like speaking to somebody out there. And it gives you all kinds of options that you can use and leverage. What is this doing? It's making sure that people who are illiterate are able to come in and converse and adopt that technology. So for us, I think we see this as a short-term fear in saying, all the jobs that were there are going to be wiped away. But the reality is, the more you start adopting it, we feel that and upskilling yourself in terms of keeping abreast, that's what's going to change, right? So I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, that start, adopting it in your day-to-day life. I think you will start, the anxiety around it will probably decrease.
Brilliant answer. I think the medical case is the most compelling one. And I think what Lathika is saying is really democratizing of technology, bringing it closer. So I think we have to look at that aspect while we look at the others too. So I think politicians should be thinking around what you were asking your second question. Yeah, it could be very,
This is
very.
more of a messaging,
Yeah.
which is very important in India today, so that people are aware
Yes.
that what to do and they are guided properly. That's all I wanted to say. Right?
Well said.
Absolutely. Excellent questions. Thank you. Who would like to be on stage next? Ruchi. Come. If you could introduce yourself, Ruchi.
Hi. Basically, I'm into making healthy alcohol. So I come from a very different background and I come from a very different industry. So my question is not with respect to MakeMyTrip, but my question is very generic. So you mentioned that you had received 2 million USD at that time, where it is 40 million USD at the moment. So I see a huge shift in the entire funding mechanism now. So what I used to see until 2021 is heavy pumping of funds, where you create a category, where you build a brand, and then you eventually lead to profitability. But now I see a very different thought process with respect to the entire funding mechanism, where people are scared of creating a category because they know you need to pump in a lot of money. So what do brands do in this situation?
Firstly, you got me at healthy alcohol. I really like it. If that exists and if you can do that, I don't think you have a problem. People will line up behind you. The world will line up behind you. But anyway, no, I think the more innovative companies, the braver companies are not going to be afraid of falling in line. So what you're saying is absolutely right. A lot of VCs would typically invest in the trend.
Yes.
So, the trend's on, we'll just go for this. So famously, Tiger Global, one of the most successful investors, and we were lucky enough to have them on our cap table way back. So they would very often have this simple chart, which is this of that. Okay. And the this of that was who's going to be the Amazon of India, and that's when they found the Flipkart guys and they believed they would become the Amazon of India. and who would be, let's say, the Expedia of India, and who would be, so this of that, basically the 10 big verticals or the 10 big success models or 12 in the US, and who's going to be that in India and in Indonesia and in China and all. And China, they had actually done very well before India. So that is a safer bet because it's a proven category. The model works, and now you look for the best team to do it. However, the smartest people have not necessarily done that. You look at some of the most amazing categories we've built. Like I think India's fintech, and sure, we got the UPI stack, but people who worked around that were just so innovative in what they built, the model, etc. Or even if you look at, some of the other models in India, I don't think they necessarily have followed that. We're guilty of that, right? We followed a online travel model. Expedia existed and Travelocity existed, and pretty much the model was the same. You can say India case is very, very different. But Redbus, which is a company that we acquired a few years ago, didn't follow any model. So it was a very innovative company because there was an India problem. And even Paytm today, we sadly going through a very tough time. Super innovative company for what they did. I think even India Mart, and I had the pleasure of being on Dinesh's board for a few years, and they were very innovative to India's trouble. You can say Alibaba was doing some aspects of it, but not necessarily their model. So don't be afraid to seek out a new model if you believe in it. But more importantly, can you actually make a business case out of it? Like what you said is fascinating. There are many VCs out here. I can see Rajneesh there, so you can line up to the many, many VCs. I'm sure you were there for the breakfast. And, try to sell them this model because I don't think it exists. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and give me a sample.
I'm having a stall here. I would definitely love you to try
I'm coming after my session, not during a session.
Yes. Thank you.
One last question.
Can I ask two or only one?
One.
One, okay. So your journey is pretty inspirational. So in the whole journey, which was one quality which made you strong as a founder, made you successful as a founder in the last 20 years? So one quality which was the hallmark of your career, which made you so successful.
Sure, and I tell young entrepreneurs the same. I think resilience is the most underrated quality for entrepreneurs. Everything else is almost a given. You need to be innovative, you need to be a great team builder, attract good talent, keep good talent. All that is important, very important. But many entrepreneurs give up too early. So I think the resilience is the key. At least for us, that's been the story. We've had enough storms, 2001 to 2005. Then we had the COVID trouble, and in the middle also we had some couple of crises with business crises, where we could have packed up pretty easily. So I think that's the most important message. Yeah.
Yes. No, I have someone else in line, so thank you. Come. If you could introduce yourself also, please.
So I'm Neha. I'm from Just Play Toys, a toy renting business. And Yogita, your sister, was one of my first customers. Yeah. So I basically wanted to understand that as a bootstrapped business, while I have to maintain my profitability in a very different kind of a category, how do I scale up?
And this is one of your models, right?
Yeah, so this is just one. We have 200 SKUs. Our categories, basically, we rent out toys, only the big and expensive ones. We do not deal in like puzzles and normal stackers, things which are high value.
Why only rental? Because if you have a product model, you're not making these.
No, I'm not manufacturing it.
Yeah, because see, a product model, I think we are seeing great toy companies come out of India. So I think Shifu is a good example of educational toys.
Right.
I think the
Shifu,
OK Play.
Shumi, and a lot of
Yeah,
them.
they're very good examples. Product companies much easier to scale up. A rental model, I'm not saying it can't be done. There is a segment for there who will definitely. I think the trick in all B2C businesses is customer acquisition. That really becomes the challenge. So for you, just knowing 1 minute about your business, I think a subscription model is your killer app.
No, so basically I am not into subscription because traditionally, as per my research, what I've seen is that subscriptions do not really go well with people because there they feel bound by that number, that 6 months or 3 months. So ours is a pay-per-use model. You take this one card, this costs like 850 rupees per week. We take care of the delivery, installation, pickup. You pay for it from our website, you book it for your rental period, we pick it back, story finished.
So why I said subscription, I meant it as a suggestion because if you take one toy or one game and you were happy with it, you're very likely going to take the next. cost of customer acquisition, CAC, is so high, you don't want to reacquire customers.
Okay,
If
from
you
that
have a
perspective.
customer who's happy with you, why should you reacquire them? And
Okay.
you should definitely think about the model.
That's
Pricing you can tweak.
Yeah, right.
Right? You can have
That's a
freemium
very good
model, you
idea.
can take, because for that parent, they're going to stay a customer for you till maybe 12, 13, the kids are 12,
Yeah,
13,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then maybe a sibling. And then word of mouth. So
Absolutely.
I think many companies just spend too much money reacquiring customers and not getting full share of wallet. Like I always say, if your customer goes somewhere else for the services that you provide, it's a crime. And even for us, if someone has come to us once, we can induce trial once. The next time they should come back because it was a good experience. And why? So great companies do a very good job of CRM. They do a wonderful job of keeping you and getting you back. You just look around any of the models. Whenever you're thinking, it's already top of mind. So you don't really go somewhere else. Best example would be probably even something like Amazon, which is not the cheapest, India or overseas, but the most convenient. It's become top of mind. Maybe that's an extreme example.
Absolutely.
The food apps. So in India, it's largely 2 or 3 food apps. Now, why do some people, particularly in, outside Bangalore, go to Zomato? They just kind of got hooked. But Zomato is not reacquiring you, but they're sending you messages, right? We're getting those messages around different time. And they've done a very good job of that. And we can name so many. So think about your CRM strategy. Think about harvesting your customers, because what you have is unlike many of us. You have repeat usage and for a long period of time.
Right.
So that's what I would say. But I don't know enough about your model.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was really good.
I'm going to ask Deep the last question. So Deep, you've made your millions, all right? You've had an amazing journey, challenging. So what do you do for fun now? What do you do with your money?
Hang out at TiEcon, yeah. No, I think, all of that is a byproduct. So all entrepreneurs, everyone out here, please don't ever chase money. You won't get it, I can assure you. Or it'll be very underwhelming when you get that number you're chasing. Please chase building a really